restoring the classified files lost to time. You are watching Bodycam Story Vault. Footage retrieved.
You mind telling me why you got guns pointed at me in my own driveway?
We asked the questions. Where's your documentation?
Documentation? Brother, I was born 10 miles from here.
That badge on your belt, where'd you buy it?
Buy it? The governor pinned it on me himself. Channel 4
Doing our
covered
job, sir. We got a tip.
Chief William Monroe's great-grandfather worked in the Newark shipyards during World War II. His grandfather became one of the first black sanitation supervisors in Newark. His father was a Newark firefighter for 32 years. William had served 31 years in law enforcement and commanded the Cedarwood Police Department for the past decade. 5 generations in New Jersey. ICE Agent Thomas Vickers, badge number 4517, with 8 years at the agency, saw none of that when he pulled into Monroe's driveway on a Saturday morning. He saw a black man loading golf clubs into an SUV with police plates and ordered him to his knees at gunpoint. Where's your documentation? The documentation was Monroe's entire life. Born at University Hospital in Newark. Rutgers degree. FBI National Academy. 3 Medals of Valor. A badge the governor had pinned on him while Channel 4 recorded. Agent Paul Dietrich, badge number 6293, noticed the badge and asked where Monroe had bought it. Brother, I was born 10 miles from here. His wife Angela watched from the kitchen window. His neighbors recorded from their porches. His officers arrived within 6 minutes and found their chief kneeling in his own driveway. 8 years federal prison for Vickers. 6 for Dietrich. $9.2 million in settlement. Donated entirely to establish the Monroe Center for Civil Rights at Rutgers. 5 generations of service. 1 morning of humiliation. And a family that had been proving they belonged since before the agents who doubted them were born. Subscribe before we continue. These stories need to be shared. Saturday morning in Cedarwood. 8:23 a.m. Chief William Monroe stood in his driveway loading golf clubs into his black Chevrolet Tahoe. The annual Police Benevolent Association charity tournament started at 10. He had been looking forward to this weekend for months. A rare Saturday without obligations. Playing 18 holes with colleagues who had become friends over 3 decades. His wife Angela had made his coffee. Strong. Just the way he liked it. The travel mug sat on the hood while he arranged his clubs in the trunk. 31 years in law enforcement. 10 years commanding the Cedarwood Police Department. 3 Medals of Valor hanging in his office. FBI National Academy, Class 258. A career built on the same principles his father had carried into burning buildings for 32 years. The black unmarked SUV pulled into his driveway without warning. Fast. Aggressive. Blocking his Tahoe before he could process what was happening. 4 men exited. Tactical vests. Weapons drawn. On the ground now. Monroe's first instinct was that something had happened. A threat. An emergency at the station. One of his officers in trouble. Then he registered the IC insignia on the vests. Then he registered that the weapons were pointed at him. What the hell is going on? We sat on the ground. Now, the coffee mug slipped from Monroe's hand. Shattered on the driveway. Coffee pooling across concrete. He had sealed himself last summer. 31 years of training. 31 years of knowing how quickly situations turned deadly for black men. The instinct that had kept him alive through undercover narcotics work and 3 incidents that had earned him medals of valor. He lowered himself to his knees. Raised his hands. I'm Chief William Monroe. Cedarwood Police Department. My badge is on my belt. What is this about? The lead agent, Thomas Vickers, according to the name visible on his vest, kept his weapon trained on Monroe's head. We asked the questions. Where's your documentation? Monroe almost laughed. Almost. Documentation? Brother, I was born 10 miles from here. Behind him, in the kitchen window, he could see Angela's silhouette, already reaching for her phone. The Ring doorbell camera was recording. He had installed it himself 3 years ago. Whatever was happening in his driveway, it was being documented. Agent Paul Dietrich moved to flank position. His eyes caught the badge clipped to Monroe's belt, visible even while kneeling. That badge on your belt. Where'd you buy it? Monroe's voice hardened. The casual dismissal of everything he had built over 3 decades. Buy it. The governor pinned it on me himself. Channel 4 covered it. I've been chief of police for 10 years. This is my house, my car, my driveway, and my town. Vickers shifted slightly. The confidence wavering, but the commitment remaining. We're just doing our job, sir. We got a tip. A tip? What tip? From whom? About what? Monroe kept his hands raised, but his voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded officers longer than these agents had carried badges. I'm a 31-year law enforcement veteran, FBI National Academy graduate. I've testified before the state legislature 3 times. What possible tip could justify 4 armed men in my driveway on a Saturday morning? Inside the house, Dr. Angela Monroe had seen everything from the kitchen window. Her husband of 29 years, on his knees in front of their home. The home they had owned for 22 years. The driveway where their children had learned to ride bicycles. Her hands were steady. Her voice was steel. This is Dr. Angela Monroe. There are federal agents holding my husband at gunpoint in our driveway. My husband is Chief William Monroe, Cedarwood Police Department. Send units now. She made 2 calls simultaneously, 911 and the direct line to the Cedarwood Police Department. Both answered within seconds. Outside, neighbors were emerging from their homes. Mrs. Patterson, 78 years old, bad hip, longtime resident, shuffled across the street. What are you doing to Chief Monroe? He's the police chief. I've known him for 20 years. Vickers turned. Ma'am, please stay back. This is federal business. Mr. Okonkwo from 3 doors down had his phone raised. Recording. That man is Chief Monroe. He coaches my son's basketball team. What is wrong with you? More neighbors. More phones. More witnesses. Dietrich was getting nervous. Vickers was doubling down. Everyone back. We're conducting an investigation. Monroe remained on his knees. Coffee still spreading across the concrete. Badge visible on his belt. Medals of valor in his office. Governor's commendation on his wall. You're conducting a civil rights violation is what you're conducting. I hope your body cams are on. Mine would be. The Ring doorbell captured every frame. The neighbors captured every angle. And somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail. 3 Cedarwood police cruisers came screaming down the tree-lined street. Lights flashing. Sirens cutting through the Saturday morning quiet. An unmarked detective car followed. Lieutenant Denise Carter exited first. 22 years on the force. Monroe's second in command for the past decade. She saw her chief on his knees in his own driveway. Hands raised. Federal agents with weapons drawn. Her face transformed from confusion to fury in the space of a heartbeat. What is going on here? She approached with her weapon drawn but pointed down. The posture of someone assessing a threat. Chief Monroe, get those weapons down now. That is the chief of police of Cedarwood. Vickers half-turned. The particular arrogance of someone who thought federal authority trumped everything. Lieutenant, we're federal agents conducting. I don't care if you're the president. That man has been my chief for 10 years. Lower your weapons, or I will consider you a threat to a law enforcement officer and respond accordingly. 6 Cedarwood officers now stood on the street. Hands on weapons. Faces showing the rage of seeing their commander humiliated. The standoff lasted 8 seconds. Vickers lowered his weapon. Dietrich followed. Dr. Angela Monroe came through the front door. 29 years of marriage. 29 years of watching her husband receive commendations, promotions, recognition. Will, are you all right? Monroe rose slowly. Dusted off his knees. His favorite PBA polo shirt was dirty now. Grass stains. Coffee spatters. I'm fine, Angela. These gentlemen were just leaving. But they weren't leaving. Not yet. Carter approached her chief. Sir, what are your orders? Monroe looked at the agents who had forced him to his knees in front of his home, his wife, his neighbors, his officers. I want them detained pending investigation. IDs. Badge numbers. Supervisor contact. And I want to know what tip brought them to my home. Vickers protested. You can't detain federal agents. Monroe stepped close. His voice dropped to the register that had convinced drug dealers to cooperate and corrupt officers to confess. I have been in law enforcement since before you graduated high school. I have put dealers, murderers, and corrupt cops behind bars. I know exactly what I can and cannot do. He let the words land. You came onto my property without a warrant. Drew weapons on me without cause. Forced me to my knees in front of my wife, my neighbors, and my community. You will stand right here until we figure out what the hell happened. He pulled his phone from his pocket. FBI Newark Field Office. U.S. Attorney's Office. New Jersey Attorney General. All on speed dial from 31 years of professional relationships. All answered within 3 rings. The Ring doorbell footage went viral within 24 hours. The neighbor recordings followed. Police chief held at gunpoint in own driveway became national news before Sunday services concluded. FBI and DHS Inspector General opened a joint investigation within 48 hours. The anonymous tip was traced within a week. Not a burner phone this time, a landline. Richard Brennan, 58 years old. For houses down. Recent transplant to the neighborhood. Brennan had made multiple complaints at town council meetings about demographic changes in Cedarwood. His social media history revealed the language he used when he thought no one was listening. Invasion, replacement, neighborhoods we used to be proud of. Under questioning, he admitted the basis for his call. I didn't think a black family could afford that house. The SUV had government plates. I assumed it was stolen or being misused. The house Monroe had owned for 22 years. The SUV assigned to the chief of police by the municipality he had commanded for a decade. The assumption that destroyed 2 federal careers and cost taxpayers $9 million. Agents Vickers and Dietrich's personnel files revealed the pattern that should have ended years earlier. 23 similar incidents over 3 years, all targeting black or Hispanic homeowners in affluent New Jersey neighborhoods. All based on anonymous tips they never verified. None had resulted in any legitimate enforcement action, because none of the targets had been anything other than American citizens living in their own homes. Their text messages completed the picture. 8:07 a.m. Vickers to Dietrich. Got another one in Cedarwood. Black male, nice house, government SUV. Doesn't fit the neighborhood. 8:09 a.m. Dietrich to Vickers. Love these calls. Easy stats. 8:14 a.m. Vickers to Dietrich. Let's check his papers. The phrase "doesn't fit the neighborhood" appeared in Vickers's communications 17 times over 3 years. Body camera footage from the 2 additional agents, secured within hours, showed them standing back while Vickers and Dietrich conducted the confrontation. One camera captured audio clearly. That's really the police chief? Shit. We're done. The FBI analysis concluded that Vickers had operated a systematic pattern of discriminatory enforcement for at least 3 years. His supervisors had received 4 prior complaints, all dismissed without investigation. The federal grand jury convened 9 weeks after the incident. Indictments, civil rights violations, deprivation of rights under color of law, assault, unlawful detention, conduct unbecoming a federal officer. Vickers, Dietrich, both agents who had seen a black man in a nice neighborhood and decided he couldn't possibly belong. 2 additional agents were charged with failure to intervene, a federal offense when civil rights violations occur in your presence. Richard Brennan was charged separately, filing false federal reports. Conspiracy to violate civil rights. The federal courtroom in Newark drew national attention. A police chief forced to his knees in his own driveway. The ring footage that had been viewed 20 million times now entered into evidence. Chief William Monroe testified on the 4th day. Full dress uniform. 31 years of medals and commendations displayed. The same badge the governor had pinned on him. Channel 4's footage of that ceremony also entered into evidence. I was loading my golf clubs. Charity tournament. My wife had made my coffee. It was supposed to be a good Saturday. What happened when the agents arrived? They ordered me to the ground. Weapons drawn. No identification. No explanation. Did you comply? I lowered myself to my knees. Raised my hands. 31 years of training. I know how quickly these situations turn deadly for black men. Did you identify yourself? Multiple times. I told them I was chief of police. I showed them my badge. I told them the governor had pinned it on me. They didn't believe any of it. The ring footage played. The jury watched Monroe kneel in his own driveway. Watched the coffee spill. Watched the neighbors emerge. Watched his wife's silhouette in the kitchen window. Where's your documentation? That badge on your belt. Where'd you buy it? Dr. Angela Monroe testified next. 29 years of marriage. The woman who had watched her husband receive the Medal of Valor 3 times. I was standing at my kitchen window. I saw my husband, the man who has protected our community for 30 years, on his knees with guns pointed at his head. How did that affect you? I've seen him receive commendations. I've seen him promoted. I've seen him honored. I've never seen him look the way he looked that morning. Something broke. In him. In me. The text messages were displayed. Doesn't fit the neighborhood. Love these calls. Easy stats. Let's check his papers. The defense argued good faith. Anonymous tip. Standard procedure. The prosecutor's response was precise. Standard procedure doesn't include ignoring police department plates. Standard procedure doesn't include mocking a chief's badge. Standard procedure requires verification before you draw weapons on a homeowner in his own driveway. She displayed the pattern. 23 stops. 0 legitimate enforcement actions. All targeting minorities in affluent neighborhoods. This wasn't good faith. This was hunting. And on Saturday morning, they hunted the chief of police. The jury deliberated 5 hours. Guilty. All counts. Vickers. Guilty. All counts. Dietrich. Guilty. Failure to intervene. Both additional agents. Sentencing followed 8 weeks later. Vickers. 8 years federal prison. Enhanced for pattern of conduct and assault on a law enforcement officer. Dietrich. 6 years. Participation despite doubts. Additional agents. 2 years probation and permanent bar from law enforcement. All were led from the courtroom. The agents who had demanded documentation now documented themselves in the federal system. The civil settlement was announced 4 months after sentencing. The Department of Homeland Security agreed to pay $9.2 million rather than face extended litigation that would expose systemic failures across multiple field offices. The amount reflected not just one incident, but a pattern that supervisors had failed to prevent. Chief Monroe announced the distribution at a press conference in front of Cedarwood Police Headquarters. My father was a Newark firefighter. He ran into burning buildings for 32 years. He taught me that service means showing up when others run away. That protection means everyone, not just people who look a certain way or live in certain neighborhoods. He paused. I'm donating the entire settlement. Every penny. $3.5 million to establish the Monroe Center for Civil Rights and Policing at Rutgers University, Newark. Research on bias in law enforcement. Training programs for agencies pursuing reform. $2.5 million to the New Jersey State Police Memorial Foundation. Honoring officers who had given everything. $2 million to scholarships for first-generation college students pursuing law enforcement careers. The next generation of officers who might come from neighborhoods like the one where his great-grandfather had worked the shipyards. $1.2 million to the Newark Boys and Girls Club, where he had volunteered for 15 years. The young people who needed mentorship most. I don't need this money. What I need is change. What I need is a country where police chiefs don't kneel in their own driveways. Where families who have served 5 generations don't have to prove they belong. ICE's Newark field office was placed under DOJ consent decree. 5 years of federal oversight. Mandatory tip verification for all residential operations. Required supervisor approval for any enforcement at private homes. For supervisors who had dismissed prior complaints against Vickers were forced to resign. The chain of command that had enabled 3 years of discriminatory enforcement was dismantled. New Jersey's legislature acted within the year. The Monroe Act, requiring verified probable cause and supervisor approval for any immigration enforcement at private residences. The governor signed it on the steps of the State House. Chief Monroe served this state for 31 years. His family has served for 5 generations. The least we can do is ensure no one else kneels in their own driveway. Richard Brennan, the neighbor who had called the tip, was sentenced to 18 months probation, $150,000 in civil damages, and mandatory anti-bias training. He sold his house 6 months after the verdict. Moved out of state. The New Jersey State Chiefs of Police Conference was held 3 months after the verdict. 400 police chiefs from across the state gathered in Atlantic City for their annual meeting. Chief William Monroe was scheduled to receive an award. Lifetime Achievement. 31 years of service. He walked to the podium expecting polite applause. The audience rose. All 400 chiefs. Standing ovation. It lasted 5 minutes. Chiefs he had trained. Chiefs he had testified alongside. Chiefs who had watched the ring footage and seen one of their own humiliated in his own driveway. Black chiefs. White chiefs. Hispanic chiefs. Asian chiefs. All standing. All applauding. All saying, without words, that what had happened to Monroe could have happened to any of them who didn't fit someone's idea of what a chief should look like. Monroe waited for the ovation to end. His voice caught when he spoke. 31 years ago, I walked into the Newark Police Academy. 22 years old. The only black recruit in my class. They told me I'd never make detective. I made detective. They told me I'd never make sergeant. I made sergeant. They told me I'd never make chief. The governor pinned the badge on me himself. He looked at his colleagues. They never stopped telling me I didn't belong. And on a Saturday morning in my own driveway, federal agents agreed with them. He paused. But I do belong. We all belong. Every officer who puts on a badge and serves their community, regardless of what they look like, belongs. And anyone who says otherwise is wrong. Provably, documentably, convicted in federal court wrong. The second standing ovation lasted longer than the first. His daughter Sarah, the FBI special agent who had monitored every step of the federal case while recused, watched from the back of the room. She had joined the bureau because of her father, had become an agent because he had shown her what service meant. Seeing 400 chiefs honor him, that meant something. But what meant more was what he said after. I'm retiring next year. 32 years will be enough. And I'm going to spend my retirement doing what I should have done more of, teaching the next generation. At Rutgers. At the academy. Anywhere they'll have me. He smiled. Because someone has to tell them what they're getting into. And what it's worth anyway. Thomas Vickers began serving his 8-year sentence at FCI Fort Dix. The facility sat 40 miles from Cedarwood, close enough for the memory to remain fresh. His appeals were denied. His law enforcement certification was permanently revoked. His pension was forfeited. Paul Dietrich completed processing at a medium-security facility in Virginia. 6 years. The partner who had asked about the badge discovering that questions have consequences. The 2 additional agents who had failed to intervene served their probation. Permanent bar from law enforcement. Careers ended. Richard Brennan served his 18 months of probation. Completed his anti-bias training. Wrote a check for $150,000. Moved to a retirement community in Florida where no one knew his history. Chief William Monroe retired after 32 years of service. The ceremony was held in front of Cedarwood Police Headquarters, the building that would be renamed in his honor. The William Monroe Public Safety Building. His wife Angela stood beside him. His children, the FBI agent, the Navy lieutenant, the surgical resident, the Morehouse senior, flanked their parents. Lieutenant Denise Carter, now Chief Carter, his successor, unveiled the new sign. Chief Monroe built this department. He built a culture of integrity, accountability, and service. And when the worst moment came, when he was on his knees in his own driveway, he handled it the way he handled everything. With dignity, with procedure, with absolute faith that the truth would prevail. She turned to her mentor. Chief, on behalf of everyone who served under you, thank you for showing us what leadership looks like. Even when leadership looks like staying calm while someone points a gun at your head. Monroe accepted the honor, looked at the building that would carry his name. My father ran into burning buildings. My grandfather cleaned the streets. My great-grandfather built ships for the war effort. 5 generations of service. 5 generations of being told we didn't belong. He smiled. We belonged the whole time. We just had to prove it. Over and over. Until proving it became the family tradition. His golf clubs still sat in his garage. The same clubs he had been loading that Saturday morning. He hadn't played since. I'll get back to it, he told his wife. Someday. But his grandchildren were learning to putt on his lawn. The next generation already finding their swing. Dr. Angela Monroe still stood at her kitchen window some mornings. The same window where she had watched her husband kneel in their driveway. The same view of the concrete where his coffee had spilled. They had repaired the concrete. Resealed it. The stain was gone. The memory was not. Do you ever think about moving? William asked her once. This is our home. We're not leaving because of what they did. I know. I just wonder if it's hard. Seeing that driveway every day. It's hard. But it's our driveway. We didn't earn it by leaving. The case file remains in federal databases. Case number 2024 CR 01178. Subject: civil rights violations, deprivation of rights under color of law, assault, unlawful detention, failure to intervene. Location: 247 Oakwood Lane, Cedarwood, New Jersey. Outcome: for convictions 8, 6, and probation respectively. 9.2 million settlement. Statewide legislation. Institutional reform. Principle established. Driveways are protected. Documentation matters. And some families have been proving they belong for 5 generations, long enough to outlast anyone who doubts them. Chief William Monroe proved that principle the only way available. By kneeling when ordered. By staying calm when threatened. By documenting everything. By donating every dollar to ensure others wouldn't have to prove what he had proven. The Monroe Center for Civil Rights and Policing opened at Rutgers the following year. Its first class of students included 3 young officers from Newark, the city where Monroe had started his career 32 years earlier. He taught the inaugural seminar himself, Constitutional Policing in the 21st Century. His first lecture included the Ring doorbell footage. This is what happens when the Constitution fails. This is what it costs to make it work again. And this is why we do the work, so the next generation doesn't have to kneel in their own driveways. The students watched in silence. The lesson landed. Some education comes from textbooks. Some comes from watching a police chief explain why he was once on his knees in his own driveway. 5 generations of service. 5 generations of proving. And a kitchen window where a wife still watches the driveway, remembering the morning it all changed, and the 32 years that made her husband the man who survived it.
Truth lives within these pages. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to never leave the vault.